Oh, I made it worse! YouTube! Welcome back to another video! I know you saw the video a couple weeks ago where I showed you what I thought was the invincible solar titan, but I made it worse. So let's talk about it, okay? Nothing really changed in the subclass itself, but I'm gonna go over everything, including all of the mods and all of the components, and then at the end, I'm gonna show you exactly how everything works in-game. So here's the deal. I have been using this exact build to do carries through PvE content on the weekends when I do my community help streams. If you don't know what that is, every single Friday and or Saturday night, I do community PvE help streams. So if you need carries through dungeons, if you need help through raids or whatever, come into chat, we'll get you in the queue, and then I will help you through whatever PvE content you need. I also stream every Tuesday at Reset and Wednesday night, so make sure you sub and stick around for those. So without further ado, let's get into this build. So let's talk about the subclass first. Nothing over here has changed. You're still using the hammers. You're still using whatever barricade that you prefer. There's no real right or wrong answer here. Whatever jump you prefer. The throwing hammer is a must because it is so fun to use and it is just frankly silly. And then whatever grenade you prefer. You need two aspects, and we'll go over them both. Soul Invictus is a must-have for all Solar Titan builds. I said that in my last video. It gives you 2 fragment slots, and all of your solar ability final blows, your Hammer of Soul impacts, and defeating scorched targets create sunspots. And then your abilities regenerate faster, and your super drains slower while you are in a sunspot. And sunspots apply scorch and deal damage to targets inside, and when you enter a sunspot, restoration's applied to you. It's quite possibly the craziest aspect so far in the game. I cannot wait to see how they one up it next season with Arc. Next is Roaring Flames. Now with the rest of this build and all of the mods and everything that we're doing, Roaring Flames is also super important. It does give you 2 fragment slots, which we'll talk about in just a second, but final blows with solar abilities or ignitions increase the damage of your solar abilities, stacking up to 3 times. And while it is active, if you happen to lose your hammer, your uncharged solar melees also do solar damage and apply scorch to targets. This thing is silly. All right, now let's talk fragments. We're talking Ember of Wonder first. This is in no particular order. Rapidly defeating multiple targets with solar ignitions will generate an orb of power. Now remember that when we get into the weapon and the mods that we're using. And it adds 10 resilience because 100 resil is a must. Second, Ember of Searing. Defeating scorched targets grants melee energy. So while you're defeating scorched targets, if you do happen to lose your hammer, you will get it back much faster and adds 10 recovery. Number 3, the Ember of Torches. Powered melee attacks against combatants make you and nearby allies, if you're doing carries or with friends, radiant. Not kills, not defeats, powered melee attacks. And finally, I did swap this up. I told you last time that I was not willing to take the minus 10 resilience, but I did mess my armor around a little bit. I do recommend taking this if some of this other stuff is in effect for you. Solar weapon or ability final blows extend the duration of your restoration and radiant effects applied to you. In most situations with this, you will have infinite restoration and radiance going. It does give you minus 10 resilience, so just make sure that your armor and your builds and like your resilience and recovery mods and all of that stuff work together. That way you are still at 100 resilience, because 100 resilience and longevity and life is the crux of this build. This is actually
the invincible solar titan build.
Patent pending. Now with all the aspects and fragments out of the way, let's get into all of the nitty gritty with this build. My favorite weapon this season, and it should be yours too. I still don't have a crafted one. However, Calus mini tool is so good. Having a Calus mini tool with incandescent and unrelenting will take this build to the next level, and I will show you why. Incandescent, when you defeat targets, it spreads that scorch around, and more powerful combatants increase the radius of that spread. And then unrelenting, when you're rapidly defeating those targets, it again triggers health regeneration. It's just another way for you to constantly be regenerating health and staying alive. Okay, now for me, and something that I definitely recommend, all of this stuff here, all of your actual stats can vary depending on how you kind of want to play this a little bit. However, 100 resilience is a must. A 40 10% damage reduction in PvE is next level, especially when you pair it with double stacked Armor of the Dying Star from this season's artifact, where you increase resistance to solar and void damage. The next thing I would focus on is your recovery, just like I said last time, guys. 90 to 100 recovery, depending on how you can build it out. If you can hit 100 recovery and 100 resilience on top of the fragments that we're using, definitely do that. But I can hit 90 and it is a perfect sweet spot for me. On top of that, I always want my baby bonk hammer. My strength's at a 7. Remember, your resilience also directly impacts how fast your barrier comes back, which directly plays in with how Loreley is going to work in this build. Now, Loreley is the exotic in this build, just like every other Solar Titan build you've probably seen ever. The whole thing, though, on top of Loreley, you definitely want to have Well of Life, where you pick up Solar Elemental Wells, grants increased regeneration for a short period of time. It hyperacts your regen. So on top of all of the other stuff, Well of Life, when you pick up those solar elemental wells that we create with some of these other mods that we've got, it boosts your regeneration even more. I also, just because of how I have everything laid out, threw Unquenchable Thirst on there, which increases the buff of the 2XS origin trait on my Calus mini tool, where essentially if my super is full while I'm getting kills, my strength and discipline are buffed. That way my grenade and hammer come back even faster. Because the thing is with this build, you're much more throwing your hammer and wanting to shoot your weapons instead of popping your super every chance you get. I also have an ammo finder mod on. I had Galley on before I swapped over to Storm Chaser, but put a finder mod on whatever you choose, and then whatever mod you need over here to get to those 190, 100 stats on your armor. On my arms, I do have impact induction, so causing damage with my melee reduces my grenade cooldown. It's all about synergy, as always. And melee Wellmaker with the baby hammer. Melee Wellmaker is a must-have. So powered melee combatant final blows spawn those elemental wells. You throw your hammer, it kills something, it spawns a solar elemental well. You pick up that elemental well, and boom, boosted regeneration because of Well of Life. On my chest piece, I did opt for an elemental ordnance, so defeating a combatant with your grenade spawns an elemental well as well. That way, all of these abilities that I have going are constantly spawning solar wells for me and my teammates. So we talked about the Orbs of Power earlier in the actual subclass build out. Absolution will reduce all of your ability cooldowns every time you pick up an Orb of Power. And Font of Might. Font of Might paired with Calus mini tool, paired with Incandescent and all of this other solar well stuff, turns Calus mini tool into the most ridiculous solar minigun in the game. And finally, on your class item, I don't know of anybody using anything else other than utility kickstart because this mod is so good. The thing is, it will not proc if the Loreley activates on its own. So if you get into critical condition and Loreley procs its Sunspot on its own, utility kickstart will not kick in. With that in mind, make sure you are popping your barriers as much as possible. I promise you, you will be in no short supply. Pop your barriers on your own as much as possible. It's a little more active way to do it. However, on top of you getting half of your class ability back, just like that, Classy Restoration then kicks in, and boom, granted restoration. This build, with any sensibility whatsoever, will never, ever be defeated other than a red bar phalanx that is in cahoots with the architects of the game. So with all of that being said, let me show you a little bit about how this works. This is the normal legend level, okay? Boom. There's my well. Picked it up, and look, I've got Radiant, Soul Invictus, Roaring Flames, I got healing going. And now all of these scorch kills, it just keeps going. It just keeps going. All of those timers go forever. And then I can kill something with this. You can't see it, but Font of Might is active. I'm doing more damage. Just throwing it's insane. It's nuts. Font of Might really changed the play for this build for me. And your one-tapping yellow bar stuff. I have no words. I didn't think that the build could get any better, and then it did. You're welcome. Go use it. Comment down below if you think I could improve this in any way, though I gotta tell you, you're gonna be hard-pressed to convince me this thing can get better. And I will see you in the next one. Make sure you like and subscribe to the video. Bye!